Here are the stories shaping the world this morning and why they matter. In northwestern Venezuela, rescue work is intensifying after twin earthquakes struck within a minute of each other on Wednesday night, leaving officials reporting more than 900 people dead, about 3,300 injured, and tens of thousands still listed as missing or unaccounted for. The quakes, both measured at magnitude 7 or higher, caused severe damage across the region, with about 380 buildings reported badly damaged. One official count put the death toll at 920, and one NHK figure cited more than 53,000 people as missing or unreachable. Authorities have cautioned that some of those entries may be duplicates, or people who cannot yet make contact because phone lines, roads, and local services have been disrupted. The search is now focused on collapsed buildings, where every hour matters. A survivor was pulled from rubble 2 days after the quakes, giving rescuers and families a rare moment of hope amid the destruction. International teams from the United States, Mexico, and Spain have arrived, and France 24 reported that aid is coming from 17 countries. The United States is sending more than 250 personnel, along with rescue dogs, helicopters, and drones. For ordinary families, the immediate needs are basic and urgent: medical care, shelter, clean water, and reliable information about relatives who have not been found. Authorities have blocked access to La Guaira, described as the center of the destruction, after traffic and chaos began slowing rescue operations. That decision is difficult for families trying to reach loved ones, but officials say keeping roads clear is essential for ambulances, heavy equipment, and rescue teams. The next phase will test both the government's emergency response and the international coordination now forming around it. Beyond the search for survivors, Venezuela faces the longer work of caring for the injured, housing people whose homes are unsafe, and rebuilding schools, clinics, and workplaces that communities depend on every day. Tensions around the Strait of Hormuz have escalated after the United States said it struck Iranian missile, drone, and radar sites in response to an attack on a commercial vessel near one of the world's most important shipping routes. U.S. Central Command said American strikes targeted Iranian drone and missile storage sites and coastal radar installations. The strikes followed what Washington described as an Iranian drone attack on a Singapore-flagged commercial vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. President Donald Trump said 4 shots were taken at a ship and that 3 were knocked down. Iranian state media said the Revolutionary Guards carried out retaliatory attacks on U.S. positions in the Gulf region. DW reported that Tehran said it hit targets linked to U.S. forces on Saturday. France 24 reported that Iran launched multiple drones at Bahrain and that a ship in the Strait of Hormuz was hit by an unidentified projectile. The immediate concern for shipping crews is safety, and for consumers around the world, the concern is whether disruption in the Gulf could affect fuel prices, supply chains, and the cost of basic goods. The International Maritime Organization says about 80 mines could be in the Strait of Hormuz. Its Secretary General Arsenio Dominguez said Iran has agreed to demine the area, while Britain, France, and the United States are willing to help verify and conduct further work. But demining cannot begin until roughly 500 stranded vessels and their crews are evacuated, a process expected to take several weeks. The IMO paused evacuations after a vessel came under attack in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday. Since Friday, 29 commercial vessels have been able to pass through the strait, according to France 24. That limited movement matters, but the broader challenge is preventing a cycle of attacks that puts civilian crews at risk and adds pressure to households already facing high transport and energy costs. In France, an early summer heatwave is putting hospitals, emergency services, schools, and care homes under strain, while also renewing questions about whether public buildings are ready for hotter weather. France 24 reported that a 4th young child died during the heatwave after an 18-month-old was found in a hot car in southern Marseille. In Paris, an adult man was found unresponsive in the Canal Saint-Martin after reportedly swimming outside an authorized area. These are individual tragedies, but they also point to a public health problem that affects families, workers, and older people most sharply. Hospitalizations in the Paris area rose 47% among people over 75. Emergency services received 61% more calls than usual, and one rescue worker said 200 people were rushed to the emergency room in 24 hours. Forecasters said temperatures were expected to fall from Saturday into Sunday, which could ease the pressure. France learned hard lessons after the 2003 heatwave, which killed about 15,000 people in the country. Since then, the National Public Health Agency has described the country's heatwave response plan as among Europe's most effective. Even so, Today's pressure shows that alerts and emergency planning are only part of the answer. A recent report found that 9 out of 10 individual rooms in care homes are not air-conditioned. The National Audit Office said investment in renovating existing buildings has been insufficient, and budget cuts threaten a plan to renovate more than 40,000 schools. For children trying to learn, care workers trying to keep residents safe, and hospital staff facing surging demand, adaptation is not an abstract climate debate. It is about shade, insulation, cooling, staffing, and buildings designed for the temperatures people are now living through. Ukraine is expanding its long-range attacks inside Russia, with Russian officials reporting large-scale drone bombardments on Moscow, Crimea, and infrastructure targets far from the front line. Russia's defense ministry said air defenses intercepted 660 drones on Friday. A chemical plant in the Tula region, south of Moscow, was attacked, according to the report, and Moscow and Crimea were hit again by drone attacks. In Crimea, authorities declared an emergency to speed up financial, contractual, and damage restoration measures. The independent Russian telegram channel Astra reported a traffic jam of at least 15 kilometers as thousands of people fled Crimea. For civilians, that means long delays, uncertainty, and fear that the war is reaching deeper into places previously treated as rear areas. Ukraine is reported to be striking energy infrastructure and targets as far away as Siberia, more than 2,000 kilometers from the front line. The targets described include oil facilities, power stations, weapons sites, and supply lines. Ukraine's strategy appears aimed at weakening Russia's war machine by disrupting fuel, logistics, and industrial capacity. But the growing reach of drone warfare also raises risks for ordinary people living near strategic infrastructure, including workers at plants, railway hubs, and energy sites. Russia's invasion has already caused years of death, displacement, and economic strain in Ukraine. The widening pattern of strikes inside Russia shows how technology is changing the conflict, allowing lower-cost drones to reach far beyond traditional battlefields. Diplomatic pathways remain limited, but the humanitarian need is clear on both sides of the border. Civilians need protection, energy systems need resilience, and any future settlement will have to address the damage being done far from the front as well as on it. In northern France, calm seas and sunny weather have led to a sharp weekly rise in migrants attempting to cross the channel in small boats to the United Kingdom. France 24 reported that more than 11,000 people have crossed so far this year, though the total is lower than at the same point last year. French and British authorities continue to work together to dismantle smuggling networks, which profit from people taking dangerous routes after regular pathways for protection, work, or family reunification have become limited or slow. Migrants encountered in the area said they were from Somalia, Sudan, Eritrea, and Uganda, countries where conflict, repression, poverty, or insecurity have pushed many people to leave. One attempted departure failed when a boat was already full and a promised second boat did not arrive. That kind of account shows the power imbalance between smugglers and the people who pay them. Families often spend everything they have and still face overcrowded boats, broken promises, and unsafe conditions. For the United Kingdom and France, the political pressure is real, but the practical challenge is also clear. Enforcement can disrupt criminal networks, yet it does not remove the reasons people move or the demand for safer routes. Local communities on the French coast face pressure as makeshift camps grow and police operations continue. British coastal services and charities face the aftermath when boats arrive. A more durable response would have to combine action against smugglers with faster asylum processing, humane reception systems, and more realistic legal routes for people with legitimate claims. Behind the crossing numbers are people making desperate calculations, and workers on both sides of the channel trying to manage a crisis that enforcement alone has not solved. In Japan, tropical storm Mekala is bringing heavy rain to the east of the country, with warnings for floods, landslides, strong winds, and high waves. One elderly man was confirmed dead after a landslide in Yamaguchi Prefecture, and 3 other people were taken to hospital. In Hiroshima Prefecture, a reservoir burst its banks and affected more than 10 homes, though no injuries were reported there. Rail services in eastern Japan were disrupted, with some local trains resuming and others remaining suspended. The storm is moving east along Japan's Pacific coast, and heavy downpours were expected through the evening in the Kanto region and the Izu Islands. The Japan Meteorological Agency issued a Level 4 urgent warning for parts of Chiba Prefecture, the second highest level on its scale. That warning means a disaster could happen at any time, and people in dangerous areas should evacuate immediately. Meteorologist Jonathan Oh said some areas from Tokai eastward into the greater Tokyo and Kanto Koshin region could see a couple 100 millimeters of rain in a short period. The JMA is particularly concerned about landslides after tremors in the greater Tokyo area on Friday. For families, the guidance is direct. Move early if local authorities advise evacuation, avoid rivers and steep slopes, and do not wait until roads are flooded. For workers, the disruption includes canceled journeys, delays, and the challenge of reaching job sites or caring for relatives during severe weather. Japan has extensive disaster planning and experienced emergency services, and that preparation can save lives. But intense rainfall events still place heavy demands on local governments, transport systems, and communities, especially when saturated ground raises the risk of landslides. Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, is set to visit Tokyo from Tuesday for 3 days of talks on Japanese support for reconstruction and technology cooperation. He is expected to meet Japanese Foreign Minister Motegi Toshimitsu. Sybiha said Japan can assist Ukraine's reconstruction through its businesses and technologies, naming landmine removal and energy cooperation as areas where support is especially needed. He also said the two sides would discuss Ukraine's experience in drone technologies. The visit comes as Ukraine is trying to maintain military support while also planning for the long work of rebuilding. Landmines are one of the most dangerous barriers to normal life in areas affected by the war. They prevent farmers from working fields, children from safely returning to schools and playgrounds, and families from rebuilding homes. Japan has technical expertise, engineering capacity, and private sector experience that could contribute to safer demining and infrastructure repair. Energy cooperation is another priority. Russian attacks have repeatedly damaged Ukraine's power grid, leaving households and businesses facing outages, uncertainty, and higher costs. Support for more resilient energy systems could help hospitals, schools, factories, and apartment buildings keep operating through future attacks and winter weather. Sybiha said he wants to pave the way for a future meeting between Ukraine's president and Japan's prime minister, after the two leaders had a brief conversation during the G7 summit. Japan's role is significant because it has focused heavily on non-lethal support, reconstruction, and economic resilience. That approach matters for Ukrainians trying not only to survive the war, but to imagine a functioning country after it. Anthropic says it has been allowed to bring back its Claude Mythos 5 artificial intelligence model for selected U.S. organizations after a 2-week government-ordered suspension over national security concerns. The company said it was notified Friday that it could redeploy the model to selected U.S. organizations operating and defending critical infrastructure. Access remains limited, and another Anthropic model with similar capabilities, Fable 5, remains restricted. The concern around Claude Mythos 5 centered on its advanced ability to detect software vulnerabilities. That capability can be useful for defending hospitals, power grids, water systems, transport networks, and government agencies against cyber attacks. But the same kind of capability can also raise security concerns if it helps malicious actors find weaknesses faster. CNBC reported that access will be restored for roughly 100 companies and federal agencies. CNBC also reported that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick determined appropriate safeguards are now in place. Anthropic said it will work with the government to expand access to Mythos 5 and make Fable 5 available for general use again. There is no indication yet whether access will be restored for foreign companies. The case highlights a broader challenge for governments and technology firms: how to encourage innovation that strengthens public services and cybersecurity while limiting tools that could be misused. For workers in critical infrastructure, better defensive tools can reduce the risk of outages and data breaches. For the public, the stakes are practical. Whether hospitals can keep patient systems running, whether utilities can protect networks, and whether fast-moving AI development is matched by public interest oversight. Burkina Faso's military government has severed diplomatic relations with France, citing years of worsening ties over security, sovereignty, and alleged foreign interference. The announcement came Friday, and France said it is considering reciprocal measures. Paris also urged French nationals in Burkina Faso to exercise heightened vigilance. The break marks another step in the wider reshaping of France's relationships in parts of West Africa, where former colonial ties, security partnerships, and public anger over foreign influence have become increasingly contested. Burkina Faso has faced severe security challenges, including attacks by armed groups that have displaced communities, closed schools, disrupted farming, and placed heavy pressure on local services. Its military government has presented sovereignty as a central issue, while critics of military rule often point to restrictions on political freedoms and the need for accountable civilian governance. For ordinary people in Burkina Faso, the diplomatic rupture may affect consular services, development programs, security cooperation, visas, and business links. French nationals in the country now face renewed warnings, and Burkinabe families with ties to France may worry about travel, study, and remittances. France's response will matter, but so will regional diplomacy through African institutions and neighboring governments. The constructive path would be one that prioritizes civilian safety, humanitarian access, and respect for sovereignty without abandoning the people most affected by insecurity and economic strain. Follow for a daily world brief. Sources are linked in the description. That's the world as Minerva saw it.